So how to be a good homeschool teacher. I'm confident this is going to be a series of videos that I'm going to be doing because it's not a tiny topic, but in this video, I want to talk about our mindset as homeschool teachers and how important it is that we don't infect our kids with our own negative, stinking thinking. So the very first thing that I want you to know is that good is relative. What that means is that what works for me as I'm teaching my children may not work for you in teaching your children, and vice versa. However, these concepts I think do work across the board. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is prejudice. What do I mean by that? I remember teaching my oldest son, and we were in a math lesson, and the vocabulary for the math were not familiar terms in my mouth. I can't off the top of my head remember what it was that we were talking about. It was probably some kind of division thing with words like quotient, and my lips stuttered on the labels just like it's doing right now. And I remember saying out loud, "This is stupid. Why can't we just say divided by and the answer is?" Because I hadn't learned the lesson that everything has its own set of vocabulary yet at that point. And what I was doing by accident was infecting him with my distaste and discomfort for math vocabulary. And it turned out that it completely and totally infected him. He caught my negative attitude about math, and he carried that with him the rest of the way through his career. When you have a subject that you don't like or that confuses you, like math, like science, you have this unique opportunity to hold that back so that you don't send that negativity in through your children's future. You don't want to sabotage them because you don't understand something, or you have done poorly in a particular area, or you just despise a different topic. If you're teaching poetry and you want to expose your kids to all different kinds of poets, all different kinds of rhyme and verse, everything from diamantes to sonnets and haiku, and you may not enjoy poetry at all, or you may have a intense distaste for a certain type of poetry. Well, if your face looks like this when you're teaching it, guess what? Your kids are going to go like, "Ew, I don't want that." Instead, you need to hide your prejudice respectfully so that you don't send that forward with your kids. Now, you're going to have things that you struggled with. For me, I struggled with the math vocabulary because it was 3 plus 4, not this add end plus that add end equals the sum of. I just didn't do math like that. So the math vocabulary. For history for me was when I passed notes to my girlfriends in class. And so history for me was all about penmanship and cute folds of paper. I didn't learn anything in history. And science is where I earned my first F because I couldn't come up with a science fair project. And although I asked for help and assistance, my teacher didn't see value in helping me brainstorm through projects. And so I got my first F. So I personally have the ability to pass on a distaste for math vocabulary, history in general, and science. That's bad. So don't pass your prejudice on to your kids. So examine your own teaching and learning life. Do you have hang-ups about anything? Be very, very, very careful when you are teaching those topics or exposing your kids to them. Okay, the next one is assign boring topics on purpose. So when I finally realized that I was infecting my kids with my own attitude and that they caught it, I had to get a little bit creative. So I would purposely pick something that I thought they would hate. And then I would have them go do research, and the assignment was this. Okay, I know you don't like this, so your job is to find the 3 most boring facts that you can find about it. But then you also need to come back and tell me one thing that made you go, huh, I didn't know that. Or, oh, okay, I was surprised by this one. So you do the boring until you find the huh thing. And what it ended up showing my kids was that underneath the surface of boring, there is typically something worth knowing. So it could be about the person, it could be about the location, it could be about the discovery, it could be about anything. And what I wanted my kids to know was that our attitude pushing into anything that we're learning really affects what we discover. And we really want to help our kids have an open mind when they are learning. So it's super important that they're not prejudiced and that they recognize that something is boring because they just haven't discovered the interesting nugget yet. Now, that's not true straight across the board. We're not all going to love molecular biology. We're not all going to enjoy the origin of the quadratic equation, and we're certainly not all going to want to know the history and the origin of a particular area on the planet. However, each one does have something that's interesting to everybody if you dig long enough, if you look hard enough. And that's where YouTube and documentaries and the library come into play. So make sure that you're using those. So how to be a good homeschool teacher: you hide your prejudice and you have your kids look for boring and an interesting fact on the other side. And the other thing is that when you get confused, get really good at saying these kinds of things. This is confusing my brain as I'm trying to teach it to you. Let's dig in this together and see if we can't understand this together. Ready? So how about you look at this online and I'll look at this online, and then let's talk about it and see if we can't find the answer. Or, I don't understand this yet, but if I study hard enough, I know I can find the answer. So we need to teach our kids that that word can't, I can't do this, that's not the whole sentence. I can't do this yet. But with some practice, study, and a little bit of help, I know I will be able to do it eventually. So I can't yet, super important. So how to be a good homeschool teacher comes back to not infecting our kids with prejudice, embracing boring, knowing that on the other side of boring, there's usually some really cool stuff. And then this firecracker. Being a good homeschool teacher requires that you think outside of the box and find a way to help your kids ignite their curiosity. You're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to know how to do all the things. So when you bump into something that you don't understand, send the kids outside to play, give them a snack, or go have them watch a short documentary while you dig online and look for a hands-on way to help bring that concept to life. Many times you won't be able to complete that activity that same day, but that's okay. We're not in a rush. Homeschooling is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And I want you to know that you can be a good homeschool teacher just by giving it your best and studying your kids, recognizing whether they are a hands-on learner or someone that needs to look at things many times or hear it multiple times before they understand. And what makes you good is that you're studying your kids, that you are holding back your personal prejudices, that you don't ignore the boring things, but that you look beyond the boring to help bring them to life, and that you take the time at least once or twice a month to dig in and find ways to bring topics that are kind of dry or uninteresting for your children at the moment. How can you bring them to life? How can you add food and music and arts and crafts, movement, or building and innovation to help bring a topic to life? You can, and I bet you are, a good homeschool teacher. And the reason I know that is because you're looking for how to be a good homeschool teacher. These are not things that bad teachers look for online. You are amazing already. You're already looking for tools that will help you better reach your kids' hearts. And I want you to embrace something that I was taught early on, in that we can fight this stigma that we're not real teachers as homeschool teachers. Don't swallow that lie. Instead, embrace the fact that you are a professional student of educating your own kids. Never get tired for looking for another way to teach that topic, another activity that will help bring their curiosity to life. Hide your prejudice. Don't be afraid of boring. Dig past it and bring those lessons to life, and you will continue to be a good homeschool teacher. See you in the next video.